that he brings in a chayas in someone that finds himself in a low state. In the same way, he redeems his own spiritual state that he finds himself in, which is in a low class state. Tzemach Tzedek in his commentaries, Tzemach Tzedek explains being in a mishpat. The mishpat hu b'shleisha dafka. Judgment is with three. The isur v'heter don gam yochid. When it comes to something that's not permissible or prohibited, or something that's permissible, so then even one person could pass and say, "Oh, this is asur. It's permitted. It's not permitted." Omnam mishpat b'shleisha. Judgment is with three. Why is it with three? Because it has to be a bezdin. V'atam lozehu lefi shebe'isur v'heter harei adayin ne'merav rak kav echad. In isur v'heter, the judge, the dayan, says only one. Eishu kosher, or either it's kosher. Eyahepech mekosher, that it's not kosher. Eishu toyer, it's pure. Eyahepech metoyer, it's not pure. Omnam b'mishpat harei adayin tzarech leimer beis kavim. He has to say both kavim. In other words, the one he should exempt him, and the other one he should refer to him as guilty. Eso echad l'schus, v'eso echad l'chayiv. Echad, one is for to be meritful with him, in other words, in a schus, in a positive way. V'eso echad, the one is actually to be mechayiv him. Okay, we're up to 334 now. The Mamar is the last few lines from that page. So the Rebbe explains, when we say one is l'schus, one is l'chayiv, two things are happening here. So it is similar to what happened in Yetzias Mitzrayim. When Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, it was also noguf v'rofei. Noguf, which means a plague from Mitzrayim. This is Makas Bcheres, the plague of the eldest Mitzrayim, the last of the plagues. Together with that, it was rofei for Yidden, for the Jewish nation. Upasachti, the Eibishter said that he's going to hop over their houses. So it was two things happening at the same time.
Rofei is only when someone's sick.
So here but here it was also considered rofei in a way of redemption, that they will be spared from this, because the Maisi is when Makas Bcheres, there's no shlita already, then you can't control it. So the Eibishter made that it should not affect Yidden. So B'meila, B'shas it came to the Inyanim of Makas Bcheres. So it says that it was Nogov v'rofei. And when was it? It was in a time which there's two extremes happening at the same time. Midnight. The midnight is a blend of two opposite extremes. In Lashon Achsidus and Sfiras and the attributes it's referred to as Chesed and Gvura. The first part of the night, the second part, actually the first part of the night is called Gvura. The second is called Chesed. And then we have also the different directions of the night. First part of the night it gets darker. Then comes the second part of the night when it becomes light. Eventually, towards the end of the night. So therefore, there are two different extremes happening in the same moment. And b'chatzi alayla, dafka, when it was exactly in that split second, both things could happen together. Nogu v'rofei, because it comes from a level which is higher than both. Since the judge has to have the blend of two the extremes together, on one hand to be meritful to one, on the other hand to judge the other one a harsh way, therefore he needs to be the middle line which is higher than both together. This why he's able, that's why he potentially could connect them together. Which this is all the mashal that's also given b'negiyah to Elul. Now, Mamar from Elul, Alter Rebbe in Siddur and Tfilas and Kol Hashon and Aliyah Deidi, and it's mentioned many times in Siddur. It is a mashal of two ministers that are arguing between each other, and then they come in front of the king. When they come in front of the king, they bechlal become batel b'mtzias. They lose their entity as a mitzias for themselves. And b'meila in front of the king, they're bottled to the king. So the pasuk for that is that's mentioned in Iyov, Eisa Shalom Mimreimov, that there is Malach Mechol Chesed, then there's Malach Gavriel Gvura. Each one is screaming something else. Then comes Mimreimov. B'shas it comes to the Eibishter, so it's Eisa Shalom. There's peace between them because they both feel a superior revelation which is higher than both together. So therefore they lose their entity, they lose their takeoff, in their strength in a way that they don't object to the other. They feel they're not a Metzias themselves, they're standing in front of the king. In the same sense that one that motions in front of the king, man de machvi b'mochei, the Rebbe always quotes from the Gemara in Chagiga, that one that motions in front of the king is chayev misa. He did something that showed a disrespect in front of the king. In the same sense also, when there's two people, or two even ministers in the government, when they start arguing in front of the king, it's a disrespect for the king. And not only disrespect, this is mitzad ethics, but mitzad al pi chassidus it is because they sense a light which is higher than both of them together. Since Torah is something that is higher than coming down in Maise in deed, in practical deed, relates to the thought and the speech of the person, which are relatively spiritual in comparison to the lower traits, is the Eliyeshahu bekavo emtsoi shemagia l'mayla meid, since it's a middle kav which reaches very high, lezeis hine amishpat magia be'etzam haneshama levdeisa. Therefore, the mishpat has the potential to redeem the neshama, which is merely concealed and has to be revealed. Then we come to page 335. With this we'll understand Mashe Megimo de Puranusa, and the 3 weeks of Puranus the weeks of mourning, the Gam Shabbos Hazon, Shabbos Shekedem Tisha B'Av, and also the Shabbos Hazon, which is the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. Misaymim b'psukei denechemta. We conclude the Haftarah with words of consolation, words of comfort. Sha'asiyam hu hateichon shel kol ha'inyan. The siyum is the contents of the whole inyan. In other words, the siyum, the end of something, is the contents of the whole subject. Because k'mei b'shtar, as we see it in the contract, sha'ashita achreina hu teichen hashtar. The last line is the contents of the shtar. According to halacha, he has to chasma, tzarech lachtem minyonim shel shtar. In the final line, he has to review, give an overview of what the contents of the shtar is. And as we see it also in the brachas of Shemoneh Esrei, that right before the end of the bracha, we sum up what we want, what we are requesting from the Eibishter. V'hainu, she'agam sheklolos ha'haftarah hu inyan shel golus. Although the general inyan of Haftarah speaks about golus, how the Eibishter is unpleased, mikol makom yesh bazeh, ve'adarabah teichen shebazeh hu inyan shel geula. Still there is, and on the contrary, the content is inyan of geula, shehu iskalus mebeis kavim. That this Haftarah, since it consists, since the inyan of klolus agam sheklolus Haftarah, klolus Haftarah means in general the Haftarah, not just this Haftarah. The Haftarah began from golus. The reason that we say Haftarah is because there was a decree we can't read in the Torah. Since they didn't allow Yidden to read in the Torah, so therefore they made a takana of the Haftarah. They chose something in the prophets that reflect the contents of the parsha. And that's how they would review the parsha. And later it remained also. And as the Rebbe mentioned in the Sicha, the Rebbe mentioned that what was the inyan of the Haftarah. So the Rebbe explains it al Pichsidus. Yidden lechatchila connected to the Eibishter through Kriyas HaTorah, reading the Torah portion every week. Then there came a decree, and they didn't allow Yidden to connect through the inyan of Torah. So Yidden needed to find a different option how to connect to Hashem. What did they do? They connected through Divrei Nevi'im. Divrei Nevi'im, it says Chavivim, Divrei Kabbalah, that the Divrei Kabbalah are very cherished by the Eibishter. Therefore, it brought out a relationship between Hashem and Yidden in a very positive way. B'meila, what happened then was the decree was nullified. But still, Adayim, till this day, we say the Parsha together with Haftarah. But this is the way the Rebbe looked at it, that it's a deeper relationship, which b'meila brought out that it nullified the decree, and this was the contents of the Haftarah. So